Heads up for our listeners, this episode touches on suicide and its impact on men, families, and communities. These stories are powerful, but they can also be difficult to hear. If you or a loved one needs support, please call or text 988 to reach Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline. You are not alone.
We have that camaraderie on a job site, and it's a little bit bewildering to me even now that we haven't been more supportive of each other through these tough times. But sometimes it's because we're scared of what it means, it says about us, because we know we're right there with them. We're going through the same thing.
Suicide touches far too many families in Canada, especially men, and especially those working in high-stress, high-risk jobs in the trades. Today, we're joined by two leaders tackling the issue from different angles. Trevor Botkin, who's turned his own recovery into a lifeline for tradespeople, The Forge, and his podcast, Off the Clock. And Andrew Perez, Interim Executive Director of the Canadian Association for Suicide Prevention, driving national policies and awareness at scale. We'll also hear from two family members with lived experience of loss. Mitch Orton and Robert Saloman open their hearts about losing their brother and their son, both men who worked in the trades, and what they wish had been there to support them. Together, these voices break the silence and show how support at every level, from job sites to policy tables, can save lives. I'm your host, Buzz Bishop. Let's get into it. Trevor, let's start with you. Tell me about The Forge and what it is that you offer peers in the trades.
The Forge started as a Construction Foundation of BC, looking at the statistics revolving around male suicide in the trades, and also the substance use challenges that are confronting the trades. BC Coroner's report just released like 3 weeks ago, 21% of overdose deaths were men in construction. And that's just, it continues on. So we felt that there was, we needed to respond to it and have some support. Myself and our project lead, Jenny Nadeau, were sent into a boardroom, me with my lived experience, hers with her background in social work. And we really just examined what's going on, what are people doing, and what is not being done. And I was able to reflect back on a number of projects I've been involved in the last 5 years on the subject. And notoriously, we build this incredible platform or awareness campaign or whatever, and then it comes back to me that they're not getting the engagement they want, that they had hoped for. And what I started to identify is this is a lifestyle occupation, a lot like frontline responders would be, where we believe honestly and somewhat accurately that we are having a unique experience in our job. Our job is our lifestyle. For many of us, our job is our identity. And the byproduct of that is we quite often don't feel like people understand what we're going through. We quite often they don't speak our language. We are very closed down to help or resources that are outside of our industry. And so somewhere in that explanation, it occurred to us that peer support, really training individuals from the sector that have lived experience with mental health and or substance use challenges and recovery, to go and take their stories and their experience out to connect with other individuals. We just jumped across a huge gap in the moat, right? We've bridged that gap to building trust and immediate connection with people. And that was kind of how the idea of Forge Peer Support was born. Men and women in the industry being able to connect with others that they know 100% understand and get the experience and what the lifestyle looks like.
Mitch and Robert are joining us. They're, I'm sure, going to offer some first-person connections to what you just said, but I just want to bring in Andrew first. You're the Interim Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Suicide Prevention. What are you trying to do through that organization?
Well, we've been around this is actually our 40th year as a pan-Canadian advocacy organization. And we continue to strive to shine a light on suicide prevention and life promotion and to reduce stigma. With World Suicide Prevention Day approaching, on Wednesday, September 10th. We're putting forward a webinar to change the narrative. And so the idea is to not simply talk about suicide, but to talk about life promotion, to reduce stigma and to open dialogue. And as part of that, we're also, and this is something that CASP has been calling for since the 1990s, we're calling for a national suicide prevention strategy. A lot of folks might not realize that Canada is one of the only G7 countries that does not have a strategy in place. We've made progress. We have a framework. We have a national action plan, but we don't actually have a strategy that's clearly tied to not only funding, but also metrics. And so at CASP, we actually, just last week, we put out a pre-budget submission ahead of the federal budget that will be tabled in October, reminding Ottawa, there are so many different challenges we face in this world right now, to remind the federal government, the Mark Carney government, that it's a crisis. We lose 4,500 Canadians a year to suicide. That's 12 people a day. Every loss costs the Canadian economy $1 million, and every loss impacts about 20 Canadians intimately and as many as 135 when you look at broader social and professional networks. So that's our focus, and I look forward to engaging with my esteemed guests on this podcast today.
We're, Trevor talking about losing 20% of people to suicide from the construction industry. I think we could say 135 people on a job site would get affected pretty quickly by that. Mitch, you have firsthand experience with this. Tell us about your brother.
My brother was, he was a tradesman from the get-go, right out of school. He hopped into it. It's in the bloodline as well too. Passed down. We had myself and my brothers had some big shoes to fill from, what our parents had taught us about hard work and accomplishing things. So, he was right in it. And, I've been there too. I've been in the industry. I know the pressures to perform at your job, to be a man all the time, because that's what you're mostly surrounded by, right? And sometimes you're a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid being thrown in with a bunch of 40-year-olds at that time, and it's intimidating. So when you grow up in that, that atmosphere, a lot of things rub off on you, right? And it's not always the good things. Like it's the hard work and the determination, but you can see the pressure building just on workers. And then you decide to start your own business, right? And now you have doubled or quadrupled that pressure on yourself, not just at the skill level, but to run a business with little to no business training. So it really sucks that my brother's gone, but I can see the pressure that builds to get you to that point. And unfortunately, he didn't have a release other than what happened. So,
Robert, you lost your son, Nick, last year. Tell us about Nick.
Yeah. So actually, Mitch, your brother's kind of a similar story in many ways. Nick went straight into trades out of high school, and did well. Started his own business a few years into that, and had a very successful business that one of his brothers is still operating today, and we help out with. But there's no question that he was under pressure. He had a vision to sort of evolve the business into maybe some home construction or something a little bit different from. He had a drywall company, and he was trying to do that. He was building an occasional house on the side, and while he was running his business, and he took on a lot. And there were some other things at play I'll probably talk about later, but certainly he put himself under a lot of pressure. He had a couple of teams working for him on contract that, he felt he wanted to keep them employed, and he had, some people that he trained and took under his wing and wanted to keep them working, and and created financial pressure for himself, trying to do other projects as well.
On a previous discussion, we talked about farm workers and their same sort of thing. They're running the show on their own. They feel like they're the only one, and they're fix-it kind of guys, and the shoulders just try to carry as much as they can. I don't know if this is an uncomfortable question, but Mitch and Robert, can you talk about your reflections afterwards? Did you see signs? Was there reaching out for help, or was it just insular for your son and your brother, and they just took it on?
Yeah, there was signs. Whether it was financial, it's like I said, it's very easy to get wrapped up in the construction image, and then on top of it, when you're working on $1 million properties and you see the lifestyle that people our own age are at home living in these properties, and you try to keep up, and that was one of the first things I saw, was just trying to keep up with people and 2-3 tax brackets above you. And so then the spending increases, the expensive clothes, the lifted truck. I've run my own business. I'm looking at it going, like, how does this being sustained? Like, this is, you can see that going, and then never proven, but you see the signs of substance abuse that are there, and very common in the construction industry. Like, there's a lot of self-medicating going on. So it's not that uncommon, looking back, reflecting back, like where is that point where it's too much, right? Is it just recreational use, or is it beyond that? So there were signs, and obviously hindsight being 2020, knowing what I know now, I would have done some things differently, and get stuck in that man role of like, come on, pull up your bootstraps, get back out there, get back working, get through it type things. So you wish I had more tools, and I'm sure that's a common theme.
Yeah. How did it affect you, Robert?
How did it affect us, or did we see signs? I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been devastating, but there were definitely signs. He was having issues with his live-in girlfriend. That relationship was on and off, and so that added a lot to the stress. He was also, his business was very successful. For a young man, he had a lot of money coming in, and was certainly living a lifestyle, in terms of he had a boat, he had nice cars, he traveled, he worked while he traveled, but he traveled. But I guess I may as well throw it out there. He was also using steroids. He was, and I don't know if that's a construction industry thing. Maybe it is. I think it is a macho industry thing, with military, with, firefighters, with police. Maybe construction falls into that as well. And, so there were hormone issues as well. So, kind of everything that could go wrong went wrong, but he was definitely drinking too much too. He acknowledged that himself. And, when he had breakups on again, off again with his girlfriend, he needed to take Ativan to calm down. And I don't think he overused that, but the fact that he needed it was, again, in hindsight, we should have put more importance on it, I guess.
Trevor, you've been nodding this entire
Well,
time. It sounds like it's a recipe book that's being built here.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
give us a summary from your side.
this is my life. Like, you guys are describing my experience to a T, and this is the thing. Like, this is the normal. I'll just speak briefly. I don't. I came into the industry. I didn't do well in school. I thought back then I was not very intelligent. I've come to learn in the years since that I'm actually very intelligent. I learn with my hands, and that's what the trades are. I mean, it really calls out to a certain aspect or a certain demographic of our community, especially when we're young men. I came out of a generation that came from a top generation. Like, it was, you work hard and you get after it, you get the job done no matter what. Things are changing a little bit in that messaging, right? It's not always the most healthy thing. And the drugs, whether it's recreational or what they became later in my life, the steroids, the emotional up and downs of not knowing how to regulate my hormones, like having this thing, like what I didn't know then, you just don't know you're in it when you're in it, and seeing their effect on my life, the things I would have done different. But I know ultimately, and on March 6th, 2019, I was done. The plan was to take my life, but that wasn't, the intent wasn't to die. I mean, it just was to shut everything off. I was so up to my ears. I hadn't been there for my kids in nearly a decade. I was drowning in work. I was the guy that took all the problem jobs, because I was proud of my whole identity was this guy that could deliver, could do the hard stuff, get the job done. I had no outlet. I had no way of taking care of myself, no way of saying no, didn't know how to set boundaries. Like, I came into an industry that paid me very well beyond my financial wisdom. And so, I had the capacity to dig extremely big holes very quickly. And I thought I would never get out from under them. I had been trying for years by myself. And in that statement is the solution. I had been buried so deep in this stuff, trying to find solutions, trying to fix it myself so nobody would know, nobody would judge me with the shame that I was judging myself with. And it just got too much, and I broke. And the solution since then has been not doing everything by myself, and really expanding my awareness of like what it is to be human, not necessarily what it is to be a man, although that's changed dramatically over the years. But I listened to you gentlemen speak about your sons, and it takes me right back to March 6th, 2019. And I just know, I know that feeling. And the really heartbreaking part is I had convinced myself that everybody was better off without me, that I was a net loss, like this would be a net positive for my children. And looking at my relationship with my daughters now and seeing like how wrong I was, it just shows me how lost I was in this, trying to achieve this unattainable thing and impress all these people that just don't matter to me anymore,
Andrew, what Trevor just said about not wanting to die, just wanting it to stop, is that something kind of that you hear through your work?
Yes. In fact, I profiled someone deeply involved with CASP recently, and wrote an article that will be rolling out soon on the Canadian Men's Health Foundation's website in light of World Suicide Prevention Day. And this individual said something which really resonated with me, which is that those with suicidal ideation, it's not a weakness or a failure. it's a block in one's mind, and they're, you're unable to function. And I think that was a really important encapsulation of those who struggle with suicidal ideation, and the challenges that our guests have been speaking to. I want to add that from an advocacy point of view, it's really important that we understand what we call our distinction-based suicide prevention solutions, which are really solutions that recognize the unique needs, experiences, and risk factors of specific populations or communities. We know that, for example, workers in the trades are disproportionately impacted. We know that young males are impacted by suicide, as well as the Indigenous people of this country, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, as well as the LGBTQ plus community. So when we look at how do we tackle this systemic problem from a government perspective, but also from a civil society point of view, we have to look at tailored interventions, strategies that are designed to reflect the cultural, historical, linguistic, and social realities of these different groups. They need to be community-led solutions that are developed in partnership with the community itself, ensuring that local leadership and there's decision-making power. And I think they need to be equity-focused and recognize the impact of whether it be colonialism, discrimination, intergenerational trauma, and other systemic barriers on mental health outcomes. And I guess I would just say, finally, I think we've made considerable progress in my adult lifetime opening dialogue around mental health issues broadly. And there's been so many different campaigns that we could speak to, whether it be Bell, Let's Talk, so many different organizations like the Canadian Men's Health Foundation, Jack.org, Movember, that have taken leadership roles. I think as it relates to suicide prevention specifically, there's still a lot more stigma around those conversations, the conversations that we're actually breaking down that stigma today in actually convening as a group on this podcast. So I salute everyone on this call, because as I say, while we've made a great deal of progress on mental health broadly, there's still so much ingrained stigma around suicide prevention and the risks that people face.
Mitch and Robert, it's I'm in awe of you being able to come on and tell the story, and here as we try to help other people find the tools and empathize with what they're going through, and let them know they're not alone. How are you, Mitch, paying it forward in a way? I don't know. How are you trying to not let it happen again?
Yeah, honestly, I never thought I would be in this position. I never thought I'd be on a platform like this. I really have no clue what I'm doing, to be honest. But what I have seen is that since I've put myself out there, it's just I've been connected with certain people, and this started out, my business coach through a foundation learned about Satch Laddie. He's running through town. I had a chance to meet up with him, which then led me to the introduction to Gene with Canadian Men's Health Foundation, which has now got me here. So the one thing that I've noticed is just getting yourself out there and talking about it, as hard as it is. It has it's just opened up some doors here, and I don't know where it's going to go from here. My one hope is that, seeing as I don't know what to do, hopefully I can raise some funds towards the people that do. So I've started a donor advised fund through the Veritas Foundation, and just hoping to raise some money towards charities like CMHF, and maybe one day be able to set up a bursary or scholarship in my brother's name. So
you talk about Satch. He's running across Canada this summer and fall with the goal of $1 million for the Canadian Men's Health Foundation, and he's been fantastic. Robert, how you're shouldering so much with your other son and trying to keep your son's company going. How has his situation changed how you're dealing with shouldering so much?
Oh gosh. Yeah, we're still dealing with estate and properties and the business, and of course, grief and sadness every day.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, like Mitch had no idea I'd ever be having this conversation. While we're dealing with everything else, we've also been trying to do something positive, I guess, and I find that somewhat helpful. So we did raise some money. We've done some articles. We've been on CBC news, national news. We have set up a scholarship in Nick's honor. So those things are positive things. I also I've talked to the police about steroids, which are illegal. Unfortunately, they don't get a lot of priority, even though they're so physically and mentally damaging. Some would say just as bad as any other street drug. I also, in Nick's case, he was seeing a psychologist mostly for relationship issues, unfortunately, and not for his personal issues. And he did communicate with his doctor a year before he died that he was feeling suicidal, and and his doctor was sort of aware of the steroid use, but the psychologist was not. And so we've talked to the College of Physicians and Surgeons and about the doctors that were involved in prescribing things, and we just feel that they could have done better, and that there really needs to be a team approach, with mental health and physical health care. Just a simple example, his doctor was well aware of his suicidal thoughts. His psychologist was not. Thought he was just having relationship issues, and gosh, what a different outcome there might have been if those two people had been actually communicating and working as a team.
Loss of relationship and breakdown of relationship is one of the leading causes of male suicide. So
well, that was happening as well, and that was the final trigger, as it turned out. But, everything that could go wrong went wrong in terms of he did reach out for some help, and that didn't really play out very well. There was all kinds of communication issues, and we were somewhat aware, but, you just never think anyone could get to that point.
Such a delicate thing when one of us in with the worldview we tend to come up with in the trades reaches out for help. It's such a delicate thing, because if it doesn't, it can be messed up, and we can feel like, why bother so quickly? It doesn't take much for us to reach out and then be able to reaffirm to ourselves, well, it's not worth reaching out because nobody was there to help anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's listening. Nobody cares.
Well,
nothing can be done. It's just,
even when we knew that he was struggling and we asked him if he was okay, he said, "Oh yeah, no problem." And
yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay, but just a male sense of humor is sarcastic. It's biting. We chop each other at the ankles, no tall poppies. We're keep everybody's egos in check. And I'm guessing when you're doing something that's pounding hammers and building things, and that has even more masculine stereotypes around it, locker room stuff, that just gets blown up even more, Trevor?
Well, we come close. I think there's a huge brotherhood and sisterhood in the trades. And yes. I use two examples all the time. Like, we're almost there. I might walk into a job site and say, "Hey, Mike, how's it going?" Mike responds, "My whole life is burning down. I'm drowning." And we'll both laugh. And then we'll go and work together. We'll have a great day. If I took the moment to say, "Mike, when that's not funny, please let me know about it, man. I want to know." Like if I just took the 2 seconds for that follow up to let Mike know that like when there comes a time where we don't want to laugh about this and we want to talk about it seriously, I'm a safe place to come to, you know? We like to think that the trades, men in construction, don't want to talk about their feelings. The work I've done over the last 5 years, 6 years has said quite the alternative. We're dying to talk about our feelings. We need permission to, we need a safe place to, we need to respect the person that's sitting across from us. And that's not that they need to deserve our respect. We just need to see ourselves reflected in them. And I'll tell you, I sit with men and within 10 minutes, they are unloading some burdens off of their shoulders and the stresses that they've been living under. And I just sit and listen, and you can see it's a different guy that walks out that door, right? The other example I give, which I think points is every one of these guys, if I had a crew standing in front of me, I'd say, look, if we're at a bar one night and things go sideways, we end up in a back alley having to defend ourselves, I know I can count on each one of you, right? Maybe not that guy. We know he'd be under the table, but for the most part, we know we would have each other's backs. Okay, now we've got a guy on the crew who's drowning. We know he's going through a divorce. We know he's been drinking too much because we're there with him and he's showing up. Do we have his back? I'm willing to stand up for you to defend you from getting a black eye and maybe get one for you. But am I there when it's a life or death situation? And when I talk to men that way with a strength-based approach, they universally start saying, yeah, and I think we in the trades have stigmatized the term health and wellness is a 4-letter word. Well, the term strength, talking about strength and how we can be stronger and be better leaders and be better husbands and partners and family members, that sticks with these guys. That's something they're proud of already, right? And so I think for me, we have that camaraderie on a job site, and it's a little bit bewildering to me even now that we haven't been more supportive of each other through these tough times. But sometimes it's because we're scared of what it says about us, because we know we're right there with them. We're going through the same thing. So if it's getting too much and becoming overwhelming for Mike, it might be overwhelming for me, and I don't know if I'm willing to admit that about myself.
Andrew, our biggest resource is the person sitting next to us, but what are you trying to do on a national level to help?
Well, going back to CASP and our advocacy agenda, we're really trying to emphasize that these issues, these challenges do not exist within a vacuum. I think we all need to acknowledge even just the last 5 years have been really, really difficult for most people. We had a global pandemic, and I don't even need to get into how that impacted people across the life cycle. Directly following the pandemic, and even till today, we've had a sustained affordability crisis where people have lost their homes, their employment. Youth unemployment right now in Canada is through the roof. I believe it's about 15 or 16%. The substance misuse challenges, the toxic drug supply have impacted Canadians across the board, certainly construction workers and other specific communities, homelessness. All of these challenges, intergenerational trauma, come together and interact to increase the risk of suicide for Canadians. We need to acknowledge Canada actually has a relatively high rate of suicide when compared to other countries. And we know that countries like Scotland and Finland, for example, that actually were proactive. There was leadership. There was a political will to put money into national suicide prevention strategies. Countries like Scotland and Finland and others saw rates of suicide fall by double digits. So I know this is a tough conversation, but I actually think there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I know that everyone on this podcast will help to, get the message out there, especially with our leaders at every level of government, that we can act, we can be proactive there hasn't been political will, but by being strategic and by really underlining how all these different challenges have been exacerbated over the past 5 years, we can force, I think, empower governments rather, to act. And we can see rates of suicide fall. We, among certain communities, Inuit communities in Canada have among the highest suicide rates in the world. That's morally unacceptable to me. I don't care what your politics are.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that that's unacceptable. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we hope that World Suicide Prevention Day this year, and in fact, September, which is World Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, we can shine a light and build this momentum 12 months a year.
Mitch, do you have any takeaways that you want to share about this conversation and what Trevor and Andrew and Robert have shared?
Yeah, what Trevor was talking about, having your guys back and all that. When you look at it, like when you've got that crew, you've got that tight knit crew, and some of them are your best buddies. A lot of times through those nights at the bar, through hanging around, waiting for jobs in the morning to start, sitting in a truck, you know more about your friends than their wife or girlfriend, things that they've never told them, that maybe their therapist, their doctor, anybody, like, you know more about them. So I think everything that Trevor said about, if you got their back physically, if you can, if you know what's going on and just go, bro, I got your back here. I'm going to be there for you. I joke around a lot too. And it's a tough thing that masks it a lot of times, but just to go, hey, when we're done laughing, I think it's huge. And I just love everything you say, and Trevor, and that you're helping guys out on the front line. And it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. It's a privilege.
Robert?
Yeah, I think, Trevor, you said something earlier that touched a nerve. You said you didn't do well in school and you thought you weren't smart. Nick was not inclined to like school very much, but we actually always knew he was pretty smart. And as it turned out, he was very smart. But, there was this self-esteem issue. And that's what drove, a lot of his behavior to live the lifestyle, to, the steroid use. He wanted to be bigger.
And it worked for a while, right? Like
it worked.
The bigger I got, the more respect I got on job sites. Right? Like there was
muscles give you a certain presence. Until
it's not a long-term solution.
No, until it starts going the other way and your body starts breaking in
100%
in many ways, and your mind is impacted. It goes from helping your self-esteem to worsening your self-esteem. And, apart from the obvious, communications is everything. I just think, parents really need to focus on building young people's self-esteem, and the school system and everyone else, we just need to build self-esteem, I think, so that you have some fundamental strength when times are tough.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, a privilege to spend this time with you guys. Some really raw conversations, and I hope we change it for somebody, right? That's what we're here for.
For sure.
That was one of the more difficult conversations we've had on the Don't Change Much podcast. But the nuggets of gold in there revealed themselves so brightly. Robert and his struggles broke my heart. Mitch trying to pick it up for his brother. And then Trevor showing and explaining so simply and itemizing how hard it is to break the cycle. We have each other's back when it comes to tough things, but do we have each other's back when it comes to the even tougher things? You know when your friend breaks a leg and you're going to pick him up and drive him or ferry his kids around. But when his heart is breaking or his head is breaking and you can't see it, but can you feel it? Are you still willing to act? We need to be there for each other. And I hope this podcast, this conversation, and the stories from Mitch and Robert and the insights from Andrew and Trevor gave you pause to think about your friends, to call up a buddy, and when he says he's doing okay or he busts your balls back, that you make sure that next time it's not funny, he knows he has your back and you have his. Thanks for being part of this important conversation. Suicide prevention starts with breaking the silence, and small steps can make a big difference. For support, dial 988 for Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline and explore resources at menshealthfoundation.ca. If you found this episode helpful, please help us reach more men and more families by following the show, leaving a review, and sharing it with someone you care. You don't have to change much. We'll see you next time with another conversation to help men live healthier lives.